Hi, everybody. My name's Ethan Du Bois, and this is the oral portion of my wildlife behavior final exam. So to begin, we're going to discuss a little bit about David Esminger's guest lecture on red fire ants and more specifically invasive species. And to begin, we'll go over a little bit. So native species are species that naturally occur in a specific area. Um, and that coincides with non-native species or species that do not naturally occur in an area but currently occupy that area. And when a non-native species, invasive species are when a non-native species has the ability to take over and further colonize a specific ecosystem. And one of the unique characteristics of invasive species are, in some cases, they can self-populate an area. They just need one initial planting. And that can be really problematic in a lot of ways. So an invasive species that I see pretty frequently is the red-eared slider. And it's a turtle that occupies different freshwater systems here in New Jersey, as well as Pennsylvania now. So as you can see in the map, the red-eared slider is native to some of the southern central states in the U.S. But however, it's currently seen in a lot of different states, which are mapped in red on this map. And I think that I'm not exactly sure when this map was created, but I think that spread has continued. And as you see, you have gaps in this, like New York isn't red, but Connecticut is. So there's probably some type of population there in New York that's not documented or hasn't been seen yet, if I had to guess. And red-eared sliders pose a real problem because they outcompete native turtles. In Pennsylvania, the northern red-bellied cooter is endangered, and most of the places I see red bellies, you also see red-eared sliders. So that poses a real problem because red-eared sliders have a variety of variables that make them better competitors. They mature quickly, they're highly fecund, they have a large size, and they have a natural aggressive behavior. Like most invasive species, they have no natural predators. So these variables create a situation which leads to decreased populations of native species like the red belly and overall loss of diversity in these ecosystems because the native species just cannot compete with some of these invasive species like the red-eared sliders. So I worked on a project where we actually removed red-eared sliders from a pond, or actually a lake, and we then donated them. They were euthanized and used for educational services for a veterinarian school, I think at the University of Delaware. So that was a cool project. But again, I mean, that was just one small project. And I think we took out probably 70 to 100 red-eared sliders, and they were really occupying a lot of this lake. So next we had one of the most interesting lectures of the semester where Dr. Marissa Sobolewski-Terry came in and discussed her research with Ngogo chimpanzees. And her research mainly focused on the relationships between testosterone and cortisol with different behaviors like patrols, hunting, and meat sharing. And she was able to do this research because the population lacked food stress. There was an abundance of fruit trees in Ngogo, and these chimpanzees really had no stress in regards to food. So some of her key findings included that increased testosterone both before and after patrols, and these were patrols to protect their territory. There was no relationship with testosterone before hunting, and there was a reduction following, and she mentioned that was surprising. And there was a reduction in testosterone in both individuals who shared and received meat following these meat sharing events, which happened after hunts. I really thought that this lecture was one of the most interesting lectures I've ever watched, probably. And I was mainly really interested in the personal connection she had with the different chimpanzees. I feel like that was completely unique to her project. And in most situations, you can't personally tell what individual is there and how they behave and act. And I thought that was really awesome. And I think it allowed her to answer some interesting and unique questions, and really provide some good insight on, behavior in this incredible and protected chimpanzee population in Ngoko. Next, we looked at brood parasitism, and this is a situation where different bird species, all cowbird species and some cockatoo species, deposit their egg in a host's nest, and the egg and the hatchling are then raised by the host. And oftentimes that has detrimental impacts on the actual host's hatchlings. So I focused on the bronzed cowbird, and this is a species that occurs in Southeast United States, Mexico, as well as Central America. And I looked at a map of sightings, and it actually reaches a little bit higher than what this map shows. I think there's pretty frequently sightings in Texas. There was a few in Florida, but again, some of that is citizen scientists, and there's probably not 100% accuracy that those sightings were accurate, but they're a little more. They seem to me like they were a little more common in southeastern U.S. and across our country than this map displays. This species prefers open habitats like agricultural fields, golf courses, and grasslands. And there's over 100 songbird species that have been documented hosts for the bronzed cowbird. Their conservation status is least concerned. So these species exhibit a few adaptations, like they're able to, before they're fully developed, the hatchlings are able to remove the host's eggs as well as individuals from the nest. And this obviously gives them a better chance to survive and a higher fitness. They have larger mouths, as well as they make louder sounds to attract more food and outcompete the host's newborns. We next got into temperature-dependent sex determination, and this was something that I misidentified on the midterm, that I knew a little bit about, that I was excited to learn more about. And this is when temperature determines the sex of an offspring, and this occurs in some reptile species. As pictured here, you have an American crocodile, and I read an article, Temperature-Dependent Sex Determination in Crocodilians, which looked at 11 species, and they looked at past studies and collected data on new ones to kind of determine and hammer out the exact details of some of these species. And this study happened a long time ago. I believe it was 1989. So this was kind of acted as like a baseline for information regarding different crocodilian species. And a couple things I found interesting out of it were days 30 through 45 were kind of that critical period where temperature really determined what sex these eggs and embryos became. And I thought that was interesting because that seems like a large variation, 15 days. It's, I feel like a lot could happen, temperature swings and storms coming in. And I think that it was kind of interesting to see how different, just different individuals and what that timing looks like for different individuals. Species throughout the study varied outcomes associated with incubation timing ranges and constant temperature. And another interesting fact I found is that the clutch size affects the variation. And this makes sense because I'm sure with more eggs in a smaller spot, it's a little warmer in there. But I just thought that was really interesting. And overall, this sex determination really has major ramifications moving forward as climate change happens and as we see warmer temperatures. There's a really serious possibility that this kind of affects populations more than it currently does, and it's really an avenue of interesting and current and important research right now. So finally, we discussed parental care. And I think for many people, when we think about parental care, we probably think about wildlife and the females taking the lead role in parental duties. And however, that's not the case for all species. And the species I focused on was the spotted sandpiper. Growing up near the coast, I've always really enjoyed seeing sandpipers around on the beach. And I was super interested to find out that they were one of the species that displayed this behavior. So they're found in the North and Central America. They're a polyandrous species. Females compete for breeding territory, and actually within that breeding territory of a female, you'll have their males compete for smaller territories against each other. And after they lay a clutch with a specific male, they'll leave that clutch and go find another male. And all parental care is left for the male, both incubation and caring for the hatchlings upon hatching. And I thought that was really interesting. Females actually only have up to 4 partners. And initially, when I was reading about this, I thought, that we would see more. But then I guess it makes sense when you're discussing or thinking about clutch size and the energy input that, having all those eggs has on a specific female. But overall, that's it. Thank you. Thanks for a great semester, and have a great summer. If I can end this.